So I never really, I mean, being even a business person growing up, like that wasn't something that was like, that was for the other people. Like, like that was for the people that could go and their whole family went to college. Like, you're going to be blue collar worker. Like, you're not a white collar person. So
Hmm.
I never even thought that way. And then, you know, after I dropped out of college, after about 6 months, I came back. My dad was working construction, and I was working with him. But there just wasn't a whole lot of room for me. He was kind of just doing me a favor, giving me an opportunity, just because he was my dad. And I was making like $230 a week, just labor, the labor guy. And I remember asking my dad. He was at the time he had been in it for like 15 years. And I asked him, I was like, hey, like I got to provide for my family because I've had a son at this point. I had my son whenever I was 16. And, he just straight up told me, he said, I've been in this business for like 15 years and I only make $1,500, $2,000 a week on a good week. You're never going to come close to that until you've been in the business 15 years. And I was like, yo, I got to get out of here. I got to figure something out. So I went to Google and I literally typed highest paying careers without a college degree. And real estate, insurance, and finance was like the top
Yeah.
top three. So
Wow. So were you down south? Because you said chicken farm, and that's where I know a lot of chicken farms are.
yeah, I'm actually in Georgia.
Okay, and that's where you grew up too, then.
Yep, a small
Okay.
town in North Georgia. Yep.
Okay. So you basically Google, hey, these are good paying jobs, and yeah, that's pretty much what you're gonna find, besides maybe like software engineer or something.
Yeah.
Uh, and then what? You just had that drive. I mean, you're already a dad at this point, so we kind of glazed over that part.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just like jumped in because I didn't really have, it was either I figure something else out or like the lights aren't being kept on. Like you're
Sure.
talking about already on food stamps, like tax return time. That is the biggest money I've ever seen, you know, uh,
Wow.
and just scraping by paycheck to paycheck, barely having enough to keep the lights on. So for me, there wasn't really a second that I thought about it. I was like, I can make 50,000. That's the average a real estate agent makes. Let me jump in. You know.
Yeah. So, do you think being a dad like kind of helped you like have a little more like responsibility on your shoulders, so like it motivated you just a hair more being a young
Oh,
dad?
oh yeah, yeah, man. I mean, dude, my, you know, that period of time whenever I had my son is a little crazy. Like, um, we didn't come from money, right? I watched my parents. They were always talking about getting money. You know, hey, we got to go out here and hustle up some money. So like I knew, there was a hustle, and you
Hmm.
had to have some drive and everything. Um, but they never really kept money. So even like if they made money, nobody in my family ever kept it, and it just wasn't something that really talked about. And they were always working, right? But I knew you had to work hard. You had to get up and work. And
Hmm.
in that time frame, so I meet the love of my life. I'm married to her now. But
Awesome.
after 3 years, my parents, they were kind of dealing with their own issues. They were a lot of people don't know this, haven't really talked about it a whole lot on podcasts, but my parents were, involved in the drug like distribution. Like they were just
Oh
doing
wow.
anything they could to
Hmm.
to get ahead. And I think that I don't think people turn to that. I mean, in my experience, it's not like someone wakes up one day and says, "I want to sell drugs,"
Sure.
but but they I think life just got so unbearable for them. Just the repetitive cycle of we make money, it goes out the window. Like there's no point. I got to get ahead somehow. And that's what they turn to. So that's going on. At 16, I figure out I'm going to be a dad. And I remember I told my dad, and he was like, well, you better get ready because, because my dad had me early too. So
Interesting.
I kind of repeated the cycle. But
Yeah.
so I had my son, and then a couple weeks later, because of what my parents were involved in, I get put into foster care, like immediately. And thankfully, whenever I got put into foster care, I got placed with a guy who was a retired lawyer, and it kind of, I mean, I knew money was out there.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wanted money. I knew that I wanted to inspire a lot of people. I've always had that hunger, but I seen that it was real, right? And then, I had my son. 2 years later, get out of foster care. My dad got us back. He turned his life around, and I think that what kind of sparks something in me is like I've seen what happens if you don't push.
Hmm.
Like I think that's people's why a lot of people kind of struggle is they just get beat up, and if you get beat up over and over and over again, like so you either going to push and fight back or
Mm-hmm.
turn to something else, and I think
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people's problems come from. So
Yeah, I think the fight, and because everyone's going to deal with struggles and all kinds of ups and downs in life, right? Like
yeah,
everyone deals with that because that's just the way life is. That's the way relationships are, and we're all born in families that are none of them are perfect, but it's kind of what you do in that struggle, right? Some of those seem like they just knock you down, but it's about getting back up, right? And
yeah,
and learning from it. I like that what you're saying. Like you kind of saw like a guy, the lawyer, I'm guessing, right, that you lived with. Like he must have been somewhat well to do, right? That's a pretty good job.
yeah. He was pretty well off. Yeah,
Those guys, yeah, dude. Mine that they make pretty good hourly rate, but then you're saying you also saw your dad, but no, I think all those things, like even like some of my mentors say, like sometimes your mess could become your message, right?
yeah,
Um, and sometimes people relate to you more too. It's like, oh man, if Kamron went through foster care, if Kamron had a son at a younger age, like none of those disqualify you from anything, right?
yeah,
They just help build the story, and it's like what do you do with your story, right? And it's all about, that's the sweet side that some people do. We've seen people like just they do turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, they turn to all these things for fulfillment and
yeah.
satisfaction when they get beat up, right? And
Try to
the,
escape.
they try to escape, and those things never serve you well. Like as much as we think, or even video games, and like I've and all these different things, like we think, oh, that'll get me, to where I need to be mentally, and they never serve you well. But finding that energy, yeah, I feel like work is one of those things that a man needs to find like a drive towards and a passion, whether it's like, do I need to provide for my kids, or if it's just like
Yeah,
I want to provide for my future, or like, hey, I just want, to live and be able to have things, right? That's not a bad thing.
yeah,
Like there's a internal motivation that most men, like, we need that. Um, so, well, that's interesting that, yeah, you have a vast of experiences. And so
yeah. It's been crazy so far, man.
I just love that you're like smiling and you just kind of, you laugh about it, and it's not, I feel like sometimes when you can deal with your past and just like openly talk about it, it's like, dude, it doesn't beat you up anymore if you could just kind of put it out there too. And it's like you got
Yeah,
to deal with it.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't let I did in the beginning. I used to be like, oh my God, I could, I used to really struggle with this whenever I was younger, especially like around 18, 19. Um, just thinking about, especially whenever you start trying to meet people in business, people
Interesting.
kind of look down on you like, you're not a real business person. Oh yeah. Oh, you got tattooed. Oh, you're one of those. Like, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I've come to realize, like, it doesn't matter how messed up you think your life is. Like, it's like you were saying earlier, there's so many people that would love just to see someone else that has went through the same thing, because in their world, like, there is nobody else. And you
Hmm.
can feel alone. I remember whenever I was 16, and figuring out, okay, my parents are on drugs, they're selling drugs. I just found out I'm having a baby, and now I'm in foster care. I literally felt like there was no one that could understand what I'm going through. And I think that's something we just got to do with our stories. Our stories got to be told, you know?
No, no, that's good. It's interesting that you didn't like copy your dad's path, right? There's something in you that like chose, I don't know, there's some wisdom that you kind of had that made you like choose, a different path, which I think that's really says a lot about you. Um, I was going to bring up a point about like, what do you think entrepreneurship, like, because you're mentioning like, hey, people might not think you're a real business guy. You got tattoos, you got this and that. But don't
Yeah.
you think that like entrepreneurship and business, like it's kind of an equal playing field in the sense that it is more based on like who you are and what you can do, right? Like businesses,
Yep.
and anyone can change and acquire those skills, right? Um, and it like there's opportunity there because it sounds like the place you're at now is maybe, did you think you were going to be there 7 years ago?
Yo, 7 years ago, man, I just needed a check to pay the bills, man.
Sure.
Uh, so no, I did not have some master plan to open up all these avenues and try to,
Yeah.
create businesses out of them. But yeah, I think I do think that skills is the one thing that you can use to separate yourself. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of business, quote unquote, business people that I think look down, or and they're not even the real successful people. Like a true successful person, that's what you got to do. You got to look at, okay, this
Hmm.
person is like a true successful person is never gonna come at you like that. But there's a lot of people in business, a lot of entre I heard Bradley say this, entrepreneurs, you know, full of shit.
That's
Um,
funny.
but and they think they, are like, oh, I'm gonna, try to bring this guy down because I don't jive with this and that. And I think there's beauty in that. Like, I don't want everybody to jive with me, but if you
Mm,
do, let's go, baby, let's go.
yeah. If you like that clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. If you want to watch the entire interview, click right here.